guys for joining us. I'm really excited for this event today. I'm Candace Shibley. I'm a water conservation coordinator with the Division of Water Resources. Please continue to use that Q&A feature to just say, hey, let us know where you're joining us from today, and then just let us know what your weather's doing. Let us know if you're getting any rain or if it's sunny skies where you're at. Um, we are going to continue to use that Q&A feature for questions throughout this event. Um, so just a little background. So the motivation behind this event is let me switch my slides here, to support folks that are interested in participating in the Landscape Incentive Program, which means that folks are converting unused portions of their lawn to something that's more water efficient. We have a statewide effort to financially support this. So we just wanted to start a monthly meetup and share roughly 30 minutes of education and give you guys plenty of time to ask questions so we can also support this from an education standpoint. So for those that are not familiar, the Landscape Incentive Program offers up to $3 per square foot for lawn that's replaced with water efficient landscaping. This amount and eligibility does vary by location. Program requirements and guidelines also vary by location, which can sound a bit confusing, but hopefully the resources on this page can answer any questions that you guys have and help out. It's really neat. This program's run by the four major water districts across the state, and then the Division of Water Resources steps in and runs the program in areas where we don't have a water district running the program. So each of these districts has some different program requirements, and they're all listed on this website here. So if you're interested in applying, or if you just want a little more information, hopefully these resources will help. This first one here, it just takes you to a Google sheet. And the way this works is you just scroll down and find your city here. And then in the next column, it's the agency or the water district that runs the program in your area. And then we've also listed whether you're in an eligible location or not. And if you're not in an eligible location, we have some resources over here for you on the far right to hopefully get your location eligible so you guys can participate. If you want to take a look at program guidelines specific to your location, or want to reach out to a contact at the agency that's running your program, everything should be in this spreadsheet for you. So for today's topic, we are going to talk about switch to drip. And I'm excited to have Nikki joining us from Sandy City as our lead presenter. Before we get started on the main topic, we're just going to do a quick dive into some maintenance. So I've got Ro and Ben joining us from Utah State University Extension, and they are just going to share some quick maintenance tips and things that you're probably doing in the landscape over the next month. So with that, Ro, I'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't uh, couldn't get the microphone going. Thank you for having me, Candace. It's fun to be here. I was given maybe 2 minutes. I'm going to do my best. I'll be talking about some spring landscape maintenance that you should be doing, or maybe should have already been doing. And I'll be covering sort of the northern kind of cooler parts of the state. Um, Really, this time of year, spring, I love spring. It's a time to get outside into your garden and start cleaning things up. This is, if you have ornamental grasses, you should have been, that you left through the winter, they probably needed to be cut down. If you haven't done it yet, there's probably still time. And if you are thinking about dividing those, this is a great time to do that too. So you can dig those up and divide them. It's time for you to be cutting back any of your summer and fall blooming perennials, things that were blooming into last fall that you didn't get trimmed. Now's a good time to do that. But you might be seeing some of your spring blooming bulbs and perennials are already poking their heads up. So for spring bulbs, if your tulips and daffodils, crocuses, if they've already bloomed, don't cut those back quite yet. Allow those leaves to put some energy back into the bulbs before you clean those up. Now is a good time to be planting summer bulbs. So things like alliums, cannas, glads, any of those can go in the garden in the next month. And then it is a great time to be controlling some of those spring weeds. I've been hearing a lot about purple mustard and burr buttercup are the two I've heard a lot about so far this spring. Um, you are probably too late for pre-emergence at this point for those particular weeds. But you know, if you can take care of them and get them pulled or cut before the seeds develop and make your life harder next spring. Um, this is a great time for landscapes to be adding a fresh layer of mulch. It's one of my favorite things, to help conserve water, slow weed seeds from germinating, and also just making your landscapes look nice and clean. So um, not all parts of the state worry about this, but lilac ash borer, this is not the emerald ash borer that we're worried about in Colorado, but this one can affect your some of your plants. And if that is a problem for you, this is in the next week or so is the time to be spraying for that particular pest. It's also a great time to be adding iron supplements as needed. So anyone with maple trees, but even willows, oaks, some of your shrubs that may have deficiency problems, this is a time to be adding that supplemental iron, and a great time for the plants to take that up. I would still hold off on watering turf grasses in the cooler parts of the state. And Candace, I love the weekly watering guide. That's one of my favorites. It's telling us all to wait just a little bit longer um, before we turn our water on. But in the next month, we are probably going to be doing that. It's a great time to be starting up and repairing our irrigation systems as we get going. This is also a great time as you're repairing, getting things started to perform a water audit. And if you need help with that, any of your extension offices can help with that. But really finding out how much water you really are putting down, and then you can be adjusting and helping to make that more efficient. And then as uh, those of us that have turf, early spring is a time to aerate and then apply nitrogen fertilizer to your lawns. I think I'm a little over, but we'll stop there.
Awesome. Thanks, Rowan. Thanks for giving a shout out to the weekly lawn watering guide. Um, I need to figure out why the chat box isn't working the way I want it to work, but the easiest way to find it is just Google weekly lawn watering guide Utah, and it will be one of the first couple of things that pops up in the Google search box. Thanks, Ro. Ben, do you want to share some tips for the Washington County and warmer parts of the state?
Oh, so a lot of the stuff that Ro mentioned, and thanks, Ro, and Candace, by the way, for letting me come on. The part that I represent, I guess, is going to be like the St. George area, Kanab, and probably the Moab areas. We're a little bit warmer, and we're about a month to 2 months ahead as far as some of our gardening and landscape stuff go. One of the things I want to talk about is a pest that we see. So as we're switching to more desert landscapes in our area, I have a lot of people putting in agaves, which are really neat plants, but they're kind of isolated to this part of the state because we're the only part warm enough to grow those. But yuccas and agaves, there's a pest that we have that we're seeing a lot more of in especially the St. George area that I want to just kind of put on here for a couple of minutes so you can be familiar with it, especially if you're in that area. This is the agave snout weevil. So I have two pictures on here. The picture of the actual weevil, that little black beetle looking thing, is only about the size of a dime. It's not a very big beetle, but it lays eggs that burrow, that hatch and burrow into agave. So like the century plant or Palmer's agave, there's a couple different ones. They will burrow into them and infect them with the bacteria that cause the heart of the agave to rot. And then it will wilt, or we call it collapse, I guess. The nice leaves that are all perky kind of droop down and flop down once they're infected with this beetle. And once it gets to that point, you have to pull it out. It's not going to recover from it. So that's kind of what this pest does. It's one that we're seeing a lot more of in the last 5 years. A couple of pictures. These are agaves. If you're not familiar with them, if you're in the northern part of the state, you'll see them a lot as you go through the St. George area. The middle picture, you can see that there's three agaves. The one in the middle is one that is infected. So it has the weevil that's inside, and the leaves are starting to droop and wilt. And the one on the far right has completely collapsed. Um, and I guess on the left too, both of those pictures, the plants collapsed and they're just had to be removed at that point. So for treatment for this, and the reason why I bring this one up this time of year is we want to treat. There's only one product that we found that is effective on keeping the weevil from going into our agaves, and that's using imidacloprid. If you're familiar with this one, it's used on a wide range of plants, but it's a systemic insecticide, so it will be inside the plant tissue. And once that weevil will start feeding on the plant tissue, it will kill it and keep it from going into the plant and keep our plants alive. So um, I listed a couple on here, and I'll just be quick because I know I'm at my 2 minutes as well. But there are some agaves that are more susceptible to this one. The ones that are more succulent have the really big leaves. The ones that have really narrow, skinny leaves seem to be less susceptible to this pest. But it's one just to be aware of. But the time of treatment is now if you're in the St. George area and parts of Kane and the Moab areas. This is something you'd want to treat for about this time of year each year. So, anyways, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. I saw a comment come through. Uh, Alice wasn't able to see the pictures. If you're joining from your phone, it's possible that you might just have to swipe one way or the other to view either the people or the chat box or the presentation itself. So give that a shot and hopefully it fixes the problem. Ben, thank you for that information. And Nikki, let's turn it over to you and talk about switching to drip irrigation.
Awesome. All right. Hopefully I can get it all right. Sharing my screen and presenting. Is that showing up?
Perfect.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. I'm going to start my timer because I get really excited about drip and often go over. My name's Nikki. I work for Sandy City Public Utilities, and a big part of that job is Sago Lily Gardens, do outreach and education in the community, and get to partner with a lot of other state and community organizations to help people be more efficient with their water. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the differences between drip and overhead spray, benefits of drip, drip parts, plans, making the switch, and best practices, and then resources. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to go over some definitions. Pressurized irrigation is like the $10 term that we often use in our community, which really just means sprinkler system. It's water that's coming into a property that's under pressure. We control its flow on our landscape through valves. It's usually composed of overhead spray, which may be rotary nozzles or spray heads. Irrigation controllers is these are interactive panels or consoles that we program them. They send a signal to those valves, which tell those valves to open and close and then water our landscape. There are smart controllers out there, which are amazing. And just the default mode on that will save you a lot of water. It will link up through Wi-Fi with your phone, with your computer. And you can also connect to local weather stations, and it'll rain delay or wind delay. An irrigation zone / station is all of the parts downstream from an irrigation valve, which in this little cartoon is that little black thing, that all of the things that water passes through after going through that valve. So we often will think like, I'm irrigating station 1 today, or station 2 is going. Sometimes we say zone. Those are interchangeable, but it's important to know what a zone is, because it is pretty critical when you're switching to drip that you keep everything on one zone. You can't switch parts of a zone. You have to switch the whole zone. But I'll talk about that more later. We think of sprinklers as stuff that sprays water in the air. It's overhead spray. There's 3 main kinds of it. Spray heads are what are most common and unfortunately the least efficient. They spray water in a fan that you can adjust from 360 down to 90. They have small particles that they're broadcasting. You run them for just a little bit. They need like a decent amount of pressure. Rotors need more pressure. They are awesome for big spaces. They run for longer distances and longer times, and they have larger particles. And then kind of a awesome hybrid is the high efficiency rotary nozzles, or the MSMT nozzles. They are moving water, spraying it while rotating larger particles. They're great for like intermediate spaces and can do an awesome job of replacing spray heads and being more efficient. Drip irrigation is like not the default here in Utah, but a lot of people like yourselves are curious about it and switching to it. Drip irrigation is the most efficient. It delivers pressurized water directly to the soil at a slow, steady rate. That pressure is less than overhead spray needs, and it needs to run for a lot longer, like 30 minutes or an hour, whereas overhead spray might need to run for like 10 minutes, 15, 25. There are two main kinds of drip irrigation. There's inline drip. This cartoon on top is of an inline drip, and if you can see my little camera, I'm holding it. This is half-inch pipe that has built-in emitters. The emitters may release water at different rates, like half a gallon per hour, 1 gallon per hour. They are great for dense plantings, and they're pretty sturdy. We have some inline drip systems set up at the garden that have been in place for like 15, 20 years. Point source is more modular than inline drip. With this, you'd have like a blank line. You choose where the emitter goes and what kind of emitter, how much water it's releasing, and then you can further customize where that emitter is placing water by putting a 1/4-inch spaghetti tube onto that. These are great for like less dense plantings, for awkward spaces. They're pretty sturdy. However, there are more parts on this that can break compared to inline drip, but it's so modular and so easy to work with that I don't think you can go wrong. To compare the two, and just like little confirmation bias for all you who are switching to drip, overhead spray on average in like suburbia, kind of where we are, it's 50% efficient compared to drip, which is 90 to 98% efficient. Overhead needs to run for less time, but you need to run more frequently, and the water doesn't penetrate as deep. Drip, it's the opposite, longer run times, but less frequent. Both systems deliver water to the environment. Overhead spray delivers water everywhere, which can be great if you have ground cover like grass, but it's not great for things like weeds, which need just a little bit of water to proliferate. Drip is awesome because it delivers water directly to plants. You're choosing where it goes, and you're choosing how it's going into the soil. Both systems are pressurized. However, the amount of pressure is different, and that's something we'll talk about in a little bit. Overhead spray, you really can't run it in the wind. Drip, you can run it in the wind. Should you? I don't know, but you can do that without the same loss. Both have a cost, time, money, and effort, but I will say that the return on investment for drip, in my experience with the gardens and my property and other people's property I've helped with, is it's much better. There is a return on investment. Why make the switch? Well, you're using less water, and it's going directly to plants. So you're watering more efficiently. You're collecting savings in your money, in your water use, in your time, in your effort. I think the drip's a lot easier to maintain. Most of the system is above ground and maybe under a layer of mulch. It's easy to see what's going on. You're not digging holes hoping to find where your PVC pipe is broken. That can happen, but it's much easier to fix like a punctured drip tube than punctured PVC underground. There's also money available. To see your eligibility, you can do what Candace said at the beginning, and you can check that spreadsheet. You can go to Utah Water Savers and also check for your eligibility and what kind of rewards you have. Just a little more to help convince you to make the switch. A lot of places, Sandy is one of them, we have tiered water rate structures. So the more water we use, the more money we are spending to purchase that water. And drip can reduce your water use depending on where you put it like 30 to 70%. So you can stay comfortably in a water block that's affordable and like feel good about your landscape. Sandy this is demonstrative, this pie graph of Sandy and a lot of other suburban areas that don't have agriculture. Most of our water is going to residences, and 70% of that water is going outdoors. It's going onto our landscapes. And maybe in thousands of years, we might recoup that in the aquifer, but in the interim, it's really not water that is immediately serving our water cycle and like benefiting us, helping our beautiful Great Salt Lake. As residents, this is something that we can do, is cut down our water use and encourage the flow of more water to the Great Salt Lake. Kentucky bluegrass and turfgrass they can be great, but they did not evolve here, and they often very much struggle to survive, especially when it's hot. Kind of like the ethos in our like Waterwise landscaping community encourages smaller, more manageable plots of grass and then switching everything else to drip. It just can help you maintain your landscape, have good looking grass, but also have a beautiful landscape. And a lot of plants prefer to not have water broadcast on them several times a week. Like a penstemon did not evolve with that. So dripping water deeply into its roots once a week is going to help that plant and plants like that thrive. So I've convinced you how to switch drip. I'm sure you already were convinced, but I just want to, make you feel really good about your decision. What happens next? So first part of switching to drip is inventorying, planning, and designing. Look at what you have. What's your current system? What do you want to change? And what do you need? And then I didn't put this in there, but like, how is it all going to work? Shopping, you can, if you're DIYing, I highly recommend that you go to an irrigation specialty store. They have like the kind of what's workforce standard parts. They can interface better together. They're less likely to have issues. You might be paying a little bit more, but you are making a good investment. And a lot of people that work there can help you pick out exactly what you need, especially if you go during a weekday when they're not slammed. You can also find someone to do work for you. There are a couple certifications that can help you narrow down your search. QWEL or QWEL, Qualified Water Efficient Landscaper, is a certification that people can get. An irrigation association as well. Definitely, if you're shopping for people, get bids, look for recommendations. You don't necessarily need a certification to be an irrigation contractor here. And that can be problematic. So have a conversation and make sure that whoever's doing your contracting is doing what you ask and what you want. I've seen some expensive mistakes, unfortunately. And then last part is installing. I maybe should have included maintenance, but it's such a tiny thing that it wasn't even on my mind. So you are retrofitting your system to be prepared for drip, and then you're connecting your lines. So like big view, planning your retrofit. The first thing you want to do is identify your zones. When you turn on each station, what sprinkler heads come on. If you are unsure, turn on each zone and put on your rain pants and then mark each zone with a flag. Maybe if you can color code or whatever, if you're just doing one zone. And then be prepared, because there's always, especially if you are not the first homeowner or it's been a while since you've run them, there's always some hiding. Estimate the surface areas to be irrigated within that zone. Maybe you are downsizing the planting beds within a zone. How much surface area is there? If you have big areas, it's a great idea to retrofit that entire zone. If you have a smaller area, you can do kind of like this a la carte retrofit heads, like if you have a small park strip. You have to get the pressure and down and filter the water for everything that's being irrigated. And then determine which type of drip is best, inline or point source. This can depend on density, what the future is in your home and your landscape, how much time do you have, and how much money do you have. No matter what you're up to, which kind of drip endeavor, you will need most of these things. A pressure reducer and filter. This is one example. This is one that I recommend for bigger projects and bigger zones. Caps for old sprinkler heads. And my rule for these is N times 2, because there's always some that show up. Trowels or shovels, you will be digging, and then you may need a pipe wrench or a pipe cutter, Teflon tape, just kind of depending on the caliber of your project. The first part of your retrofit is adjusting the entire system so it can handle lower pressure and the water is filtered. And this is, the pressure regulator is important for all projects. And if you're secondary irrigation, the filter is critical, and they even make special kinds for you. So definitely talk to your irrigation specialist about that. Larger areas, like I said, it's great to start your filtering, pressure reducing at the valve, and then everything downstream is taken care of. You don't have to do any other retrofit heads. You can also put this in line with the PVC, maybe not next to the valve, but somewhere before irrigation spray heads start coming off. And then the smaller areas, like maybe a 200-foot or 400-foot park strip, you can just use some of these tinier retrofit heads. They look just like a sprinkler head and function to filter and pressure reduce all of the water that then comes out of this, of that elbow joint. There are lots of different makes and models of those. For inline and for point source, but I'm going to talk specifically about inline right here. Map out your area that you want to irrigate and try and be as to scale as possible, because this will help inform you how much drip line you need. Most of the time I end up going back to the store because I always underestimate. And if you like going back to the store, then, do you. Consider your plant needs and your planting density, how far apart you want to space your lines. You should have a system inlet. So that's where water is coming in from like your PVC underground and then going into your tube every 200 square feet. Grids are great. Standard practice is space your lines every 12 inches and have your emitters 12 inches. I like to draw mine out and color code the connections and fittings to inform what I need to buy. I always buy more because I usually get it wrong. You can also take your plan to the irrigation specialty store. Sometimes they are able to just help you on the spot, pick things out. I know that there's some that will charge you a fee for a plan, but then you can apply that towards parts that you buy. Parts and pieces you'll need for inline. The 1/2-inch emitter tubing, it gets sold in rolls of 50, 100, 200 feet. Fittings, there's lots of different types that you can purchase. Generally, the more expensive they are, the easier they are on your hands. So the really basic barbed connector is going to be the most affordable, but it can be challenging. I like buying a mix of all, because some connections I like to keep modular because maybe I'm changing a planting bed from year to year. Tube stakes and staples, this is to keep the tube in the ground. Again, N times 2 rule. Blank tubing is optional if you are connecting irrigation areas within your zone, but maybe you're running under a path or the sidewalk or an area that you just don't need irrigated, like in between grow boxes. For setting up your inline, I like to give my tube a little spa time. So I'll cut off all of the plastic and whatever ties are keeping it together, and then put it in somewhere that's warm. Like a hot day is great out in the sun, and let that release some of its spring tension and just relax. It'll be a lot easier to work with. I start by identifying my inlets. Where is water coming into the system? I connect with a barbed T or elbow, and then I kind of mix and match. The next part, it's sort of up to you how you want to do it. You can lay lines. It's okay if there's some curvature in that. They don't have to be perfectly straight. Sometimes they'll buckle and kink if they're too straight. You can put kind of add connectors as you go, or you can cut all your pieces and then connect. It's kind of up to you. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but we're all different. So you have that adventure. Be mindful when you're cutting of your emitters. If you cut too close to one of the built-in emitters, you will render that useless because you can't stick a connector in there. Optional and awesome. It's not mandatory. Your system will still work, but if you put a flush end cap at the end, at kind of the lowest point of your system, this will help you clear it out at the end of every year. And if you have any debris in there, it'll help flush it out. Pretty important for secondary irrigation. All right, point source. Same starting point, map out your area and be as to scale as possible. Same rule, 200 square feet of area to be irrigated per system inlet. Again, consider what your plants need and planting density when you're deciding what to buy. You'll have your blank tube path that can kind of wend its way in between plants. And then your emitters it's good to get them all kind of the same, but sometimes you'll have a plant that needs higher gallons per hour. Sometimes you'll have a tree that you're trying to establish. And what's great is it's pretty modular. You can swap things out, you can add things. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's probably a pro out there that can help you. Little more to put in your shopping cart for point source. We've got 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch blank tubing. We have our emitters. Like there are so many different makes and models. They're all color coordinated differently. So definitely stick with like one make, one manufacturer, and go with that. The Zeraman tool is a fantastic, expensive piece of plastic that will help you put in emitters, remove emitters, put in goof plugs, fix things. Again, the fittings, these are the same that you can use with inline. And then tube stakes. So we've got the 1/2 inch tube, and then we have the 1/4 inch tube stakes. These might be, they might look a little different. They might have a built-in like bug preventer in there, but they really help direct the water precisely to where you want it, the plant's roots. Again, when you get your tubing out, give it some spa time, let it relax. Identify your inlets and then connect with a barbed T or elbow, and then connect your line to that. So when I did mine in my front yard, I like staked out my 1/2 inch tubing and then figured out where my plants were going to go, which you could do it either way. A lot of people would probably prefer that you have your plants in the ground first. And then I put in my emitters with my little Zeraman tool and then connected the spaghetti tubing to it. Okay. Optional things to add in: an air valve. There's lots of different models of this, but it'll just help release air that gets trapped in the tubes. I have this problem with mine, and my drip will scream because there's air trapped in there when it's running, and it's disturbing and annoying. The system still runs fine, but that's something that you could definitely like engineer out. Flush end caps. This is just one model. You can even use a figure 8 or a zip tie as a flush end, but it's really just a way that you can easily let water flow through to clear out debris or to winterize. Irrigation boxes are awesome for some of those components, like the retrofit heads. Throw it in an irrigation control valve or an irrigation box so you can fix it easily if you're doing a rebate program or you have regular help. They know where things are. So a little bit of effort, but a lot of payback. If you have trees, it's really important to kind of baby them as you make this transition from overhead spray to drip. You're going to gradually transition to deeper watering. When you're putting your drip lines down, trees have kind of like a natural rain canopy, and that's where a lot of their roots that collect water are concentrated. So you kind of want to start there and build your circles out. If you can't do that, just do the best you can. We really don't want to have circles that are like at the tree base that can impair the tree's health. But if like you can't move things out over time, that's okay. Like this picture on the right, that tree may not have roots at that innermost circle, but another tree nearby might. Bubblers and micro sprayers. So this is kind of a polarizing little thing. These can be amazing, but they are adjustable, and they can be adjustable to a degree that makes them not really water wise. They're also very breakable. The tops can screw off. There's little plastic pieces that just get weathered and damaged. They are not allowed in the Utah Water Savers Landscape Incentive Program. Um, that doesn't mean you can't incorporate them in your own program or your own yard. It's just best if they're on their own zone, and you're not going to get reimbursed if you choose to put those in and you're doing the incentive program. They can be great in veggie gardens. They can be great in establishing ground covers. Um, just know they're not like the most water wise component, and there are issues with it. So be vigilant if you're going to put these in your landscape. Soaker hoses are flexible. They're breakable and degradable. They're not really considered water wise, but they are very helpful. They are not allowed in the Utah Water Savers Landscape Incentive Program, but they can be great in vegetable gardens. They can be great in establishment watering, and they can also be awesome if we have a year where we have to choose how we want, like what gets watered. You can put a soaker hose around your tree because that's the thing that you're going to put your water towards. But yeah, they do break apart. Soil, understanding your soil is really important to proper watering, choosing your system, and then choosing how you water. We have the whole gamut of soils here in Utah. You can do a soil, like a primitive soil test yourself. You can send soil in to Utah State University. You can do soil tests. There's like kits that they sell at hardware and lawn garden stores. But we want to know what our soil is composed of because water travels through it differently. Sand out here in Sandy, that is what we have. We water in shorter cycles because water is percolating through. The more water we add, the faster it carries through and becomes useless to our plants. So we want to keep it in like the accessible root zone. Loam, if you have loam, congratulations, you won the soil lottery. This is great. It's better to water in cycles, but you're not going to have as much water loss as sand. Clay drains really slowly, so it's best to water all at once. Another thing that's important about our soil is what nutrients we have in there. Here in Utah, our soil is very nitrogen deficient, and a lot of times we will perceive a plant to be unhealthy, and so we add more water to it. Maybe it's too thirsty, but really it just needs some nitrogen. So doing that soil test and learning what you're deficient in can help you stay really efficient with watering. If you're putting in a new drip system and you have new plants too, you will be needing to pay attention to the establishment period. We call this phase of new plants getting acquainted to their new areas establishment watering. The plants go into shock. It's just like a new setting. Their roots aren't integrated in the native soil yet. They need a little more TLC. So to help with this, you can use nature and plant in spring and fall. The sun is not as intense, and we often get a lot more natural waterfall. But you will need to water 3 to 4 times a week to the depth of the new roots to help these plants. This is not the future. In the future, you will hardly have to water them at all, it seems. To learn more about that, you can visit your local conservation gardens. USU has amazing resources. You can read plant tags. There's a lot of great ways to kind of figure that out. You can get a soil moisture meter that will also help inform you if you're watering well for your new baby plants. Once things are established, there are a lot of resources to help you build out a schedule for how often to water. Smart controllers have a default programming that's awesome, but you can tailor it to where we are, what kind of soil you have. Are we in a drought? And then there's local resources. On the left, this is like our back of the brochure, Sago Lily Gardens, just a snapshot of irrigating. The state has an awesome weekly watering calendar that they update every single week during the irrigation season. And they have like the kind of average watering, and they have a low use watering. It's wonderful. I would definitely recommend bookmarking it. And then on the right, we have Conservation Garden Parks, super thorough, awesome watering guide that has dates that you should shift how much you're watering, how much you should water, and then soil considerations. So lots of good things out there. Next level efficient irrigation is hydrozoning. This is where we're grouping our plant water requirement. We're grouping our plants with the same water requirement in the same zones. So like shrubs and trees that might have the same water need, they're on the same station. Waterwise perennials and shrubs, same station. Raised garden beds, same station. So this is pro level, and you'll all get there. For maintenance, there is some maintenance. It's pretty minimal. You still want to do a walkthrough of your system periodically. You want to check your water bill and just look for anomalies. Sign up for like leak alerts or water monitoring if your water provider offers that. This is like my nemesis here in Sandy. They just have like every crazy thing happening in their drip system. Like pieces will just break and water will just flow right out of it. That's very inefficient. It's also very easy to fix. They just tied in the middle a piece of tubing in a knot. And then on the right, this was the worst one, but almost every single one of their irrigation boxes was just flooded because they had like just a poor connection somewhere. So like there is upkeep, but it's a lot less, and it can be a lot less devastating if you have a small leak. Sorry, I'm getting a message. Okay, I'm almost done. Resources. I've talked about USU a bunch, and I'm going to talk about them again because they're amazing. They have all the extension services, and then on top of that, they have the Center for Water Efficient Landscaping, where they're doing research and they're publishing papers, and they have all sorts of things available to the public. Of course, the Division of Water Resources has a website that has tons of different opportunities on there. These people are amazing. They're like just spreading great education around the state, and it just gets better and better every year. So good thing to bookmark, good people to talk to. Qualified Water Efficient Landscaping, Irrigation Association. Those are great resources when you're looking for someone to help you. Slow the Flow. It's already got an awesome brand, and it is having the best glow up right now. It is just getting better and better. There's so many resources on there. Sprinkler specialty stores, and then like all of our water districts, Red Butte Gardens, Conservation Garden Park. These are all filled with people who are experts in their field and have resources and have guidelines. They're great people to reach out to. Okay, that is it. I did okay. It's 30 minutes. I'm putting in a little plug-in for our spring fair at Sago Lily Gardens at the end of next month. We'll have like a bunch of local experts there. DNR Water Resource is going to be there. We'll have like master gardeners are going to be there. Seawell will be there. So come visit us. And if you have any questions in the meantime, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. That was great. Just gonna give a quick plug for next month. We're gonna cover, excuse me, we're gonna talk more about soil. We're really gonna focus on like how you remove the lawn, like some effective ways to do that, because starting off right really just sets you up for success. So I'm gonna put a link to that in the chat. We covered a ton of resources today. We're gonna do a follow-up email, either later today or later this week, and we'll kind of summarize and put all those links into one resource for you guys. And we'll also include links to register for next month and other things that might be helpful. When you guys leave here, there is going to be a survey that just auto pops up. If you guys could just take a minute, it's going to take you like literally a minute just to provide some quick feedback. Let us know how we did, topics you'd like to see in the future. That really helps us shape this event into something that is beneficial to you all. Feel free to use the Q&A box for questions. Let's dive into some of those. Nikki, you talked a bit about hydrozoning, and we've had quite a few questions come through related to like watering different plant types on the same zone. One specific example is the park strip. like if someone wants to convert their park strip, but it's on the same zone as the rest of their lawn, what are some solutions you'd have there?
Gosh, I did not talk about that, and this is such an important thing. So if you are switching to drip, you have to switch the entire zone to drip or add on another zone that's specifically drip. So I had a situation like that in my yard where my front yard sprinklers were connected to my park strip, and I wanted to switch to drip. So I had a choice. I could either switch everything to drip, which is what I did, or I could put in another valve that was going to be specifically to my new drip zone, and then dig a line from there and integrate it with the park strip, and then like disconnect the park strip from the other parts of that zone. So from those front yard sprinklers, they cannot be on the same. And I know people like are going to try it and want to fight me on this, but I promise you, it's not a good idea. You have to run your drip for like many minutes. It releases water in terms of gallons per hour, and your grass wants to be irrigated more frequently. You need to run your overhead spray for like 10 minutes. It's releasing water in terms of gallons per hour. And there's really no way to marry those two that's going to be efficient. So we keep them separate. Kind of helpful, the answer.
Yeah, that was super helpful. I imagine this answer is going to be similar, but there was another example that came through, and this is also common, which is really unfortunate. But when a landscaper comes in and just puts everything in the backyard on the same zone, how would you handle that situation?
Yep. So with that, I would do my best to plan ahead and figure out like what I wanted and where. And then I'd have to add in more zones and try and tailor that to the types of different plants I had there. So I'd have one zone for my lawn. I'd have another zone maybe for like trees and shrubs, another zone for garden beds. But to the best of your ability, keeping those separate for those separate plant water needs is good. Um, Definitely, if you're going to do anything, keep that grass on a separate zone.
Awesome. We've got a few questions coming through just about I'm curious about your perspective or opinion on like the deep stake watering
Oh,
versus like multiple point source, like a lot of 1 gallon per hour emitters versus like using inline drip if you're doing like trees, for example.
I really don't have that much. I don't have any experience with the deep stake stuff, but like the professionals over at our local sprinkler store really like them. Our arborists really like them, which I think is probably the best endorsement. Um, and I'm sure that like if you took that quandary to an irrigation specialist, they could help you pick what's going to be best, like to integrate into your system. For trees, I think my big thing is just making sure that tree is getting enough water, especially as you're going through the transition period, and then keeping it modular if your tree is going to continue to grow, just because we want that tree to get as much water as it possibly can. Um, yeah, kind of helpful, maybe.
And then when you're doing, I love the visuals you showed for like the retrofitting sprinklers to drip irrigation. Is there anything special that folks need to do to protect those retrofits during the winter?
I just like with winterizing your pressurized system, it's great to get all as much water out of there as possible. You can hire someone to blow the water out, but you don't necessarily need to. We our parks team is awesome and helps us out at Sega Lily, and we get all the water cleared out. At my home, I just let it drain out, and it's been okay. I have all of my valve boxes inside a shed that is pretty sheltered and doesn't endure like hard freezes. So that's something I might be concerned about, is just like kind of protecting your system, make sure it's in ground and it's not like exposed to freezing temperatures, because that if there's water in there, that freeze thaw cycle can be pretty hard on it.
Gotcha. What about like if you have those retrofits, they pop up a little bit, and if
Mm-hmm.
in your park strip, like they might get kicked or broken. Do you have any clever ways to protect those?
So I've seen some things, like some people will put in the little circular like irrigation boxes with the green lid. Some people will put an elbow joint and lay it down on the side. It's still like any sprinkler part that's in your park strip. It is like it's susceptible to damage. If there's a way to like use funny pipe and move it in the middle where it's less likely to get stepped on, or you can get the different level risers too when you're retrofitting it. So if it was sticking up this much, you could get a smaller riser and then it would be a little bit lower in there. Having it flush with the ground and then having like one of those irrigation boxes around it is probably the best defense.
Yeah, I like that suggestion a lot. Those are some good tips. We have such good questions coming through. I'm impressed. Okay, so this one's related to pressure. So those like some of the retrofit kits have like the pressure reducer built into them and others don't. So if someone's just converting like two sprinklers on the line and then capping everything else, um, do they need to do a pressure reducer on the whole thing? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And for that, you could just if you're just converting two heads, this is a great bet. It's so easy to plug and play. And it's maybe about the same as getting one of the bigger ones that you're integrating into your line, but like way less intimidating to put in.
So if they're doing that retrofit that you showed first,
This one.
would that be enough, or would they also need to put something on the line?
So long as the water that's coming out of here, like that's the only way that water's getting onto the ground, they're not like coming out of an unretrofitted sprinkler head, then that's okay.
Okay.
One of these is good for about 200 square feet. You could probably squeak by with a little bit more.
Okay, perfect. This question's related to you mentioned that maximum linear foot of roughly 200
Yeah.
for the drip irrigation line. What does somebody do if they have more space than that?
Just convert another sprinkler head or have another sprinkler head be an inlet. So we typically think of like you have one sprinkler head that you've converted and then you put the line onto that. That's great for 200 square feet. If you have more, then you're just going to convert another one or put another like barbed tee if you have your pressure reducer filter farther upstream.
Gotcha. And then thinking about plant density, like if it's a really sparsely planted area, do you think someone could get by with a little more than the 200 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Like uh, if you're doing point source and it's pretty sparse planting, then yeah, probably.
Gotcha.
But what's great about that is you could just add more in if it's not enough. It's so easy to plug and play.
It is fun to work with. It's kind of like Legos.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. This is just switching gears a bit. Is there such a thing as too much mulch?
Yes.
How do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I feel like the perfect 3 to 4 inches is the Goldilocks zone. 5 inches can be good. But more, I guess it kind of depends on the situation. Like if you have 6 inches of mulch in a planting bed, you're probably going to start to get, there could be some like molding or like water trapping, water's not percolating through into the plant roots. You can get like, it's going to be its own ecosystem. It's going to start decomposing in there, but perhaps not in a way that's like in the short term helpful to the plants that you have there. So yeah, like 3, 4 inches, 5 maybe. And if you have a bunch of mulch in an area where you don't have plants, that's totally fine. It is going to decompose. It'll block out weeds and benefit you, but it won't impinge on your plant health.
Cool.
But not enough mulch is also problematic because then you have lots of weeds coming through. And
Cool. Do you have any resources for folks that want to do the math? Like they're curious like what the pressure is coming out from the city and what kind of reducer they're going to need and how much they could put like on that line?
um, sometimes I know that like um our water folks will go test people's pressure for them, but there's not much they're going to do beyond that. I know that like the USU water check program if you're eligible for that, they'll come test your pressure and make recommendations. You can buy things to test your own pressure. I'm sure you can hire professionals to do that as well. And there might even be kits that you could check out from Extension. Do you know that, Candace? Do you guys know that? I know you can check out some of the water audit stuff from Extension offices. I don't know if there's a pressure gauge in there, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if there's
that's
a pressure gauge in the audit kit. I think it's just the cups.
okay.
Yeah, we just have, I have them right here.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, so we have the cups that people are welcome to use, but we don't have a pressure gauge. That's not a bad
Okay.
idea to have in the kit. You can usually find them at like Home Depot or a farm store. Um,
Mhm.
to check they're usually like $15, so a little bit pricey, but to check your
Right.
pressure, they're pretty nifty.
A lot of people will already have, if they have irrigation installed, oftentimes they already have like some sort of overall pressure regulator installed in there. If not, that's definitely a good thing to add in. If your pressure varies wildly throughout the day, that can really affect the efficiency of your system. Um, but yeah, you could call your water supplier and they might have some resources too.
Cool. That's good feedback. We all see a lot of the exposed drip lines.
Mm.
The mulch goes away or the rock tends to move around. Is there a reason why people don't bury them?
Um, I think there's lots of reasons. The primary one that I see is just like kind of negligence. It's not particularly fun to refresh mulch every year, but it's pretty important. Um, and maybe it's just for ease of access. I personally, at Sago Lily, we try our best to keep ours covered up just because the UV rays can damage a lot of those plastic parts. And then we have issues coming from that. Like it's more likely to get damaged if it's exposed from like somebody walking by or somebody playing with something or,
Yeah.
getting just some sort of accident.
What about like just burying it a little bit in the soil before putting the mulch or rock on?
You can do that. I think Netafim, which was like the original drip system, was made to be buried. A lot of them can be buried. That's fine. I don't like to do that. Just if there's an issue, if I need to change something, it adds another layer, and I'm kind of lazy. But you definitely can do that.
Awesome. Nikki, thank you very much.
Thank
This was
you.
fantastic. It is 1 o'clock. We did have just a couple questions come through that I want to address before we go. This is being recorded. We will send this out to everybody. So if you did arrive late and you want to watch it from the beginning or you just need a refresher, that resource will be there for you. Again, there is a survey that's going to pop up when you leave. So if you guys could please complete that, that'd be awesome. And then we had a question about the landscape incentive program and if HOAs can apply. And the answer is yes. It's open to all property types, unless you're a golf course, unfortunately, or a city park. But HOAs can apply, businesses, institutional facilities, your school districts, cities, government buildings. Yeah, it's a pretty wide range of those that are eligible. Nikki, thank you. Ben, thank you. Ro had to hop off early, but we really appreciate his time and all of your time. And hopefully we'll see everybody next month. I hope you guys have um, a good spring.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.